like to call the Planning Commission meeting to order, May 10th, 2022. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call of members, please.
Commissioner Brago.
Here.
Commissioner Anderson.
Here.
Commissioner Bautista.
Here.
Commissioner Esparza.
Here.
Chair Weisenberger.
Here. Item number 1, approval of minutes from the April 12th, 2022 meeting.
Commissioner Brago, I make a motion. We approve the minutes for April 12th, 2022.
I second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Brago.
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson. Commissioner Bautista.
Yes.
Commissioner Esparza.
Yes.
Chair Weisenberger.
Yes. Okay, let's move to public hearings. Agenda item number 2, conditional use permit number 918. This is a request by Jeanette Preciado Garcia / J-Lift LLC to operate a fitness studio at 7922 Rosecrans Avenue, Suite S, in the Clearwater East specific plan area. Staff report, please.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Under public comments, we do have 2 cards, speaker cards. They're related to the condition for conditional use permit number 507. So we'll call you up during the public hearing of when that item is heard. So moving on to CUP number 918. This is a request to allow the operation of a fitness studio at 7922 Rosecrans Avenue in the Planned Development with Performance Standards Zone. The location is a shopping center that wraps around the Jack in the Box at the southwest corner of Paramount Boulevard and Rosecrans Avenue, and Associate Planner Ivan Reyes will give you the details.
Thank you, John. Honorable Chair, members of the Commission, I'm here to present conditional use permit number 918. This is a request to operate a fitness studio. The project address is 7922 Rosecrans Avenue, Suite S. It's located in the Clearwater East Specific Plan. The Clearwater project area is 68 acres located in the north central area of Paramount. Existing developments includes the swap meet, drive-through theater, as well as commercial and industrial buildings. The project site is located in a 2.3 acre plaza, and the suite is 1,046 square feet. So the description, the applicant is requesting a fitness studio. The hours of operation for fitness classes will be limited to 5:30 a.m. to 12 p.m. and 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. all days of the week. To begin, the applicant will not open for business Saturday evenings or anytime on Sundays. The applicant will be the fitness instructor, and the business will have no other employees. So here's a close-up of JFit. It is a women's-only fitness boot camp. They offer healthy lifestyles. This is their Instagram page with over 500 followers and growing. They have merch, meals, and sessions catered for healthy living. Here's an aerial of the project location, located in Unit S in the BNS Plaza off of Rosecrans Avenue and Paramount Boulevard. And the Unit S is highlighted in blue, and the yellow is the property lines. Here's a close-up of the floor plan. As you can see, there's an entrance. There is a 909 square feet of workout area, and followed with 53 square foot restroom and an office. The suite itself, it complies with all building and safety regulations. Here's an outside view of the subject site from the outside. As part of the conditions of approval, there will be no outside loitering. Any outdoor speakers or other exterior audible devices are prohibited. Special events shall be reviewed in accordance with special event permit regulations for possible approval by the planning department. And with that, it is recommended that to adopt resolution number PC 22017 for conditional use permit number 918. And this concludes my presentation, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
No.
Okay, let's open up the public hearing portion for this item. Can we hear some testimony now, John?
We don't have any speaker cards for this item.
Oh, okay. In that case, we need a motion to close the public hearings. Need a motion to close the public hearings?
I motion to close.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Abrego,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Bautista,
Yes.
Commissioner Esparza,
Yes.
Chair Weisenberger.
Yes. Okay, now we need a motion then to adopt Planning Commission Resolution number 22017, approving this request.
Commissioner Abrego, I make a motion that we adopt the Planning Commission Resolution PC 22017.
I second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Abrego,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Bautista,
Yes.
Commissioner Esparza,
Yes.
Chair Weisenberger.
Yes. Okay, let's move to agenda item number 3, conditional use permit number 919. This is a request by Duker's Appliance Company USA LTD to operate a wholesale/distribution business of commercial appliances at 6801 DeBee Drive in the M2 heavy manufacturing zone. Staff report, please.
Yes, Mr. Chair and members of the commission, this item is a request for a conditional use permit to operate a wholesale and distribution center for the Ducker's brand of appliances at 6801 DeBee Drive. Our planning intern, Jessica Guillen, will go over the request with you.
Good afternoon. I'll be presenting conditional use permit number 919. The applicant is Duker's Appliance. The applicant is requesting to operate a wholesale/distribution business at 6801 Debbie Drive. The property is within an M2 heavy manufacturing zone, which allows for this type of business, also known as Orange Industrial Park. The applicant proposes to occupy the occupy the existing 23,515 square foot building on a 35,462 square foot property. So here is an aerial view of the property. The blue box outlines the project location. The property is at the northwest terminus of Debbie Drive. So the business imports its own line of commercial appliances, which are then scheduled and dispatched for shipping through online orders. The business will use less than truckload freight carriers, which is a flexible option for transporting smaller and less time-critical shipments, and one box truck for distribution of their products. The business will average about 4 to 9 pickups/deliveries per day. The business will have 15 employees on site for office work and operation of lift trucks and forklifts. Business operations are proposed Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Additionally, there will be no outside storage. All the products will be stored inside the building. Here is the site plan and floor plan of the project. The blue box outlines the warehouse. Everything else is parking and the landscaping. And here is a site photo of the property. So this proposed use is consistent with the surrounding manufacturing uses, and the site is adequate in size and location for proposed business. So with that, the Planning Department recommends approval of conditional use permit 919. That will conclude my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Is here? Okay, let's open the public hearing portion of this request. John, have we got any?
No speaker cards in favor or opposed.
Okay. In that case, we need a motion to close the public hearing portion.
I'll motion to close.
I'll second it. Esparza.
All, please.
Commissioner Abrego,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Bautista,
Yes.
Commissioner Esparza,
Yes.
Chair Weisenberger.
Yes. Okay, then we are ready to entertain a motion here to adopt Planning Commission Resolution number 22018, approving this request by Duker's Appliance.
I'll make a motion, Esparza, in order to for the resolution number PC 22018 to approve it.
I'll second.
please.
Commissioner Brago,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Bautista,
Yes.
Commissioner Esparza,
Yes.
Chair Weisenberger.
Yes. Okay, agenda item number 4. Conditional use permit number 507. This is a resolution to revoke conditional use permit number 507, approved September 12, 2001, to operate an automotive service center, which includes auto repair, auto body repairs, tire sales and repair, stereo and alarm installation and repair, a window tint installation, vehicle registration services at 7337 Somerset Boulevard in the CM Commercial Manufacturing Zone. Okay, staff report, please.
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. This item is a request to revoke conditional use permit number 507. As you mentioned, CUP 507 was originally approved in September of 2001 by the Planning Commission and allowed for auto repair, auto body, tire sales and repair, stereo and alarm installation and repair, window tint installation, and vehicle registration services at 7337 Somerset Boulevard. For almost 5 years, the site has been a source of code enforcement violations and unsafe and illegal parking and staging of vehicles in the public right-of-way, both on the sidewalk and on Somerset Boulevard. The business, as you'll see from the pictures and the presentation, looks as though it operates as a salvage yard for vehicles, which is not a permitted use in the city. Our Assistant Planning Director, John King, will go over this item with you. We also have our Public Safety Director, Maggie Matson, present, and Maggie will speak after John King.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Chair Weisenberger and Commissioners. So John mentioned it's a proposed resolution proposing to revoke an active conditional use permit for this location. As you're aware, the Planning Commission does not review this type of action, of proposed action, very often, and we don't take this very lightly. As John Carver mentioned, the original conditional use permit was approved in September of 2001 and covered various types of automotive repair, bodywork, stereo installation, and similar services all related to automotive, to vehicles. At that time, the zone was CM, commercial manufacturing. The municipal code has a code section, section 1748070, regarding the possibility for revocation. And also when conditional use permits are approved by the Planning Commission, this language is included as a condition of approval with the approval. So in the future, the Planning Commission or the Public Safety Director can recommend to staff to bring up modification, suspension, or revocation of the CUP. So directly from the code, the CUP could be revoked on grounds that the CUP is being or recently has been exercised contrary to the terms or conditions of such approval or in violation of any statute, provision of this code, ordinance, law, or regulation, or if the use for which the approval was granted was so exercised as to be detrimental to the public health or safety, or so as to constitute a nuisance. So with that as our guide this evening, we'll be bringing evidence to support that conclusion, that recommendation. So background, we'll go back to September of 2001, when the Planning Commission approved conditional use permit number 507. At that time, the applicant was Alamir Bakit, and the applicant operated a business called Somerset Auto Center. So now the zone is CM and has been since 2018, but at that time it was M1, it was light manufacturing. So times change, and the city council in 2018 decided to change the zone of that block of properties, the north side of Somerset Boulevard, between Texaco and Garfield. Also in 2018, the City Council adopted Ordinance number 1106. That was part of another broader effort to update the M1 light manufacturing and M2 heavy manufacturing zones. So by doing that, the City Council changed the automotive body and fender works and/or automobile painting use category, moving that from what was in the M1 zone a conditional use, a possibility with Planning Commission review and approval, to what's now a prohibited use throughout this city. And as auto body uses are no longer permitted in any zone in the city, auto body shops and the similar uses are now legal non-conforming. So because they were granted the entitlement to operate, they're still permitted, but a new business would not be able to do the same thing anywhere in the city. Here's an aerial photo, so it shows the location of the site. So you'll see this is at near the northwest corner of Somerset and Garfield. At Somerset and Garfield is actually a 76 service station with car wash. Just to the west of that, outlined in red, I have a little pointer here. That is the subject property, which is 16,200 square feet, and it has on the west side a 4,416 square foot building. There's also a spray booth at the northeast corner. Before you is the site plan that was presented to the Planning Commission in 2001. It's oriented so north is on the right side of what you're seeing. So you'll see that the building depicted here on the top is on the west side, so you kind of just reorient yourself from the previous slide. And you can see the parking spaces that were assigned and the trees that were required at the time and the landscaping at the front of the property and the accessible parking stall. That's Americans with Disabilities Act compliant parking stall. So that's how it was, what was approved. And we have before you a photo from 2001, which this is the same photo that the Planning Commission at that time reviewed. With the approval, as you know, when there is an approval of a conditional use permit, the Planning Commission will include conditions of approval, as most cities do. And in this case, amongst other conditions, we just want to highlight the following conditions here that were included to ensure a clean and orderly business operation. There's three of them. One is no outside storage shall be permitted. Second, no dismantled vehicles shall be parked on the lot. And the third, all work shall be conducted in the garage bays. Now, the change of ownership, the current owner is not the owner that applied for that conditional use permit. Businesses at the subject property have changed ownership with only minimal lapses in business operations. Business license records indicate that there was a new business owner in 2005, an intervening owner, before the current owner assumed operations in 2015. The current business owner is Eric Nunez, who is here with us this evening, and Mr. Nunez has operated the business as Somerset Automotive Center. And just a little background on conditional use permits. They basically, what we say, it runs with the land. A CUP remains active between different business owners as long as the business use does not cease after more than 6 months. So if somebody goes out of business and it takes more than 6 months for a prospective replacement to come in, that replacement could not be, in this case, a auto body shop. So some photos. These are photos that staff took in 2015 when there were a couple issues. This was not a code enforcement case at this time, but just some issues that came up at the time that the property owner or the business owner was at the time the business owner was a new owner and complied with a couple issues. But these are photos at that time, so you could see the landscaping in front of the property and the condition of, well, there were some trees on the interior and the vehicles at that time. So moving to the violations of the conditional use permit. The current business owner has repeatedly operated the business at 7337 Somerset Boulevard, this property we've been talking about, has operated the business at this location contrary to the approved conditional use permit, despite repeated interaction with the Code Enforcement Division of the Public Safety Department over the past 4 years, 2018 to 2022. The owner continues to violate the conditional use permit by parking cars being serviced on an adjacent property and or in the street median at different times. Although the business owner has made it an attempt to address the violations by leasing space on Jefferson Street, where a previous conditional use permit for automotive restoration was approved in 2015 for a completely separate business under completely separate ownership. Despite that, the violations have continued at this location on Somerset Boulevard. Additionally, there's no record of a business license for the current business owner on Somerset to operate at Jefferson. There was a notice of violation issued in 2018. So on May 21, 2018, the Code Enforcement Division, a code enforcement officer, issued a notice of violation for the storage of wrecked and inoperable vehicles associated with the Somerset Automotive Center upon the adjacent commercial property in violation of Paramount Municipal Code Section 1744-20A and the provisions of the conditional use permit, and in public view, loading and unloading vehicles in the center median and the public street, and third, for the storage of wrecked and inoperable vehicles in off-street parking spaces. That notice in 2018 was issued after an initial complaint in December 2017 and follow-up inspections by the Code Enforcement Division on May 15 and May 18, 2018. Code enforcement then worked with the owner for about a year to identify numerous ongoing violations and eventually conducted a voluntary conference with the owner, as well as numerous inspections before compliance appeared to be achieved. And the specific dates, the meetings, and the contacts are documented in the exhibits that you have in your agenda binders. And we do have some photos. So these are some photographs from 2018. So at the top is a photograph of, that's the street median, that's a wrecked vehicle. And these are cars that are being prepared to go into the subject property. So they are using the public streets as an extension of the business. And at the bottom is the street view. So looking north across Somerset Boulevard to the business, and you can see there are cars that are hanging in over the private property line. I'll kind of show you here. So generally where the sidewalk begins is the property line. So you can see there are two vehicles that are extending into the public right of way. And this is very common. So you'll see evidence, we'll show some other photos that shows this is something that has happened through the years. This is very dangerous. This is a danger. It's a public danger to pedestrians, bicyclists, other drivers, other passengers of vehicles, and even their own employees that work there, even the owner. You can also see the landscaping has diminished for this photo. So there's only some shrubs, or less than before. There's dirt. So you don't see what, we normally we look for mulch or some type of, soil amendment. So after that issue was addressed, it was taken care of. 2 years later, code enforcement issued another notice of violation. September 1, 2020, code enforcement issued another notice of violation for a similar complaint received on August 27, 2020, and confirmed by a code enforcement officer on August 28 of that year for parking vehicles to be serviced on the adjacent commercial property. And the business owner voluntarily complied by moving those vehicles. Here's some photos of that from that time. You can see the date on the bottom right. And just kind of a gauge with the landscaping. It's a lot of weeds, deteriorated. There looks like there's no irrigation anymore. And there's a car that's, if you look carefully, there's no passenger. There's not a passenger inside the car. It's parked there in the lane. 2022, so it's this year. February 3rd, 2022, code enforcement issued a notice of violation for the same problems as in the 2018 and 2020 issues, which is using the median to store vehicles as well as parking on the adjacent property. Additionally, the property has repeatedly been cited by Paramount Community Service Officers, CSOs, for parking violations, including where they park from the curb. There's a municipal code section with that, and leaving an unattended vehicle pursuant to Vehicle Code Section 22515B, which provides that, and the quote is, no person in control of or in charge of any vehicle other than a motor vehicle shall permit it to stand on any highway without first effectively setting the brakes thereon or blocking the wheels thereof to effectively prevent the movement of the vehicle. This case is still an open case. It's active at this time. It's now with the city prosecutor. So in the world of code enforcement, most code enforcement cases are resolved at the administrative level with the code enforcement officer and the public safety director or the assistant public safety director, or before there was a code enforcement division head. It's very rare. There are very few cases, but there are some when they are prolonged cases or revisited cases, they end up on what the city prosecutor terms the matrix. So this violation, this property's case is now on the matrix with the city prosecutor. And here are some photos you could see here with this case. The adjacent property, you could see the middle car has the rear off, and there's somebody connected with the Somerset Automotive Center holding the body work. And you'll see this is taken, at the same time, 11:18, 11:16, but there's a car parked on the sidewalk. So you're blocking access to anybody who could go by. Somebody in a wheelchair, somebody with a stroller, a child in a stroller. So it's a very unsafe situation. And this is a photo from today. This is a tow truck that's waiting to bring a vehicle to the property, and that's from this morning. You can see from the timestamp. I'm sorry. I'll get to a photo from today.
That's February.
This is actually this is February 23rd. So it was another time in February. So thank you. Stand corrected. So you have a few slides regarding analysis and leading to a conclusion. So back to what we mentioned in the beginning, Section 1748.070 of the Municipal Code, which is attached which is included with your agenda binders as Exhibit F, states that a CUP can be revoked if the conditional use permit has been exercised contrary to the conditions of approval, and secondly, the use for which the permit was granted is exercised in a manner that is detrimental to the public health or is a nuisance. Vehicles associated with the business continuously have been parked on the adjacent commercial property in violation of the municipal code and provisions of the CUP as shown by the notices of violation and a number of citations. Despite earlier sporadic compliance, the owner continues to park and store vehicles in the median in violation of CUP conditions of approval number 25, which is no outside storage shall be permitted. Number 26, no dismantled vehicles shall be parked on the lot. And condition number 27, which is all work shall be conducted in the garage bays. These violations create a vehicular traffic hazard and endanger pedestrian safety. And the owner has been cited repeatedly by code enforcement for parking on the sidewalk, or code enforcement and community service officers for parking on the sidewalk, violating the 18 inches from curb limit, and leaving unattached vehicles. The business owner has repeatedly failed to comply with the requirements of the conditional use permit as set out and in written exhibits, despite code enforcement efforts and the business owner's earlier agreements to comply. These unlawful actions are detrimental to the public health and safety. Tremendous city resources, city attorney, city prosecutor, code enforcement officers, community service officers, administration have been dedicated to responding to complaints and monitoring. So with that, it is recommended that the Planning Commission revoke this conditional use permit. And just closing with slides showing how it used to look and how it looks now. So this is 2001 before the, this is the photo that the Planning Commission at that time reviewed. You can see the landscaping. There's no landscaping in the front as our gauge. And then you have how it looks today. These photos are from today. So you can see the vehicle bodies in an upright position, not in any approved designated area where they should be. And there are cars on this left side, the west side of the property, that would not be able to be taken in and out without what we consider a valet, like an auto body valet, to get them in and out. And on the bottom, you can see now there's one shrub left. So with that, we recommend that you read by title only, waive further reading, and adopt resolution number PC 22015, revoking conditional use permit number 507. And as John Carver mentioned, Public Safety Director Margarita Matson, she is here and available for questions and clarification. And Assistant City Attorney Elizabeth Martin is here to help us as well.
Mr. Chair, if we could just hand it over to Maggie Matson right now for some comments.
Yes. Thank you, John. So good evening, Chair and Planning Commissioners. So as noted, for the past 4 years, I have been overseeing both the Code Enforcement Division and the Community Service Officer Division. The property located at 7337 Somerset Boulevard has been a continuous nuisance for public safety. Both code enforcement officers and community safety officers have had to continuously respond due to the following violations: the loading and unloading of vehicles on the center median and on the public street, off-street parking spaces being used for storage of wrecked and inoperable vehicles, vehicles impeding traffic, the flow of traffic, causing major safety concerns for motorists, vehicles parked on the frontage, the lawn, and vehicles blocking the sidewalk, which again pose an immediate safety hazard for pedestrians. On record, we have documented at least 40 patrol checks to address the noted violations. Numerous parking citations and verbal warnings have been given to the business establishment, and there has been no resolution to the constant nuisance. Based on our observations and service calls, public safety has determined that the business is causing a safety concern, a blight to the neighborhood, and is absorbing city resources. The business has failed to comply and refuses to abate the violations presented to you this evening. The business has an operation that is simply not suitable for the respective location, and we hope that you take this into consideration. Again, as John Carver mentioned, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you may have regarding the observations. I, as well as the officers, have verbally made contact with the business establishment, just trying to educate them, trying to get them to understand where the city is coming from. I would like to note that the city has always been business friendly, but I think we're reaching that point with these past 5 years where I think we've exhausted all our measures. And at this point, we do have the responsibility to come before you and share our concerns and the concerns that are being called in by the residents, by drivers that have been impacted. If you need clarification as to any of the parking citations, please let me know and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you.
Pardon me, there was a statement regarding complaints. Please know that the cases that have been opened are complaint driven. So code enforcement works in a matter where we will hear a complaint, will respond to the location, and we'll make an assessment. If there are violations, we will go ahead and then open a code enforcement case. Based on the report today, you could see that we've had complaints since 2017, and I did have the opportunity to look at our files, and I know that there has been other complaints in the past, but I have been with public safety since 2018, and I would say that, for the past 4 years, it's been a constant battle with receiving calls, having people say, hey, we're basically trying to get from point A to point B, and there are vehicles being unloaded, blocking the flow of traffic, blocking the number 1 and the number 2 lane, or vehicles being staged on the center median, impeding the flow of traffic. And again, having people jaywalk to go from the center median onto the business establishment. So with that, I would say that there are numerous complaints that have come in, which have caused us to open, and we currently have an active case with the city prosecutor due to those concerns and complaints. Thank you.
Okay, then you know what? Let's open up the public hearing portion of our meeting tonight. And John, we have some
Right.
testimony.
So the first speaker that we have is Eric Nunez. If you want to come up to the podium. If you could push the button for the mic. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Eric Nunez, and I am the owner of Somerset Automotive Center. I would like to address some of the challenges we have faced in the last 24 months. I would also like to explain our progress in creating solutions for these challenges. In 2019, the parking and overflow of our vehicles was brought to my attention by the city. To solve this issue, I leased another location in Paramount at the 7326 Jefferson Street. I took possession of this property on May 1st, 2019. We moved a portion of these vehicles that we have for our overflow to this location. We were set to start repairs. I took possession of the property on May 1st, 2019, and we were set to start working May 6th, 2019 at our new location in the city of, on the Jefferson location. The building caught fire on Sunday, May 5th, 2019, causing production at that location to stop and prompting legal action against the people that caused the fire. Shortly thereafter, COVID-19 hit. COVID-19 and its effects have had a major impact on our business and our business plans. COVID-19 has disrupted our supply chain, causing delays in deliveries to the point of standstill. COVID-19 has depleted our workforce and decimated our employee pool to the point that we are forced to hire entry-level employees with no prior experience. COVID-19 has also changed the way insurance carriers operate, which has caused major delays in the repair process. These are a few of the obstacles we faced. Some of the ways we are addressing these issues and now and in the future as followed. 7326 Jefferson Street will be available for us at the end of May, which is this year. This will make the biggest impact to the overflow issue. We have never really had the opportunity to implement this location properly due to the damage caused by the fire back in 2019. Once this location is fully functional, we should be able to manage our inventory more effectively and reduce congestion at our flagship location on Somerset Boulevard. We plan to purchase new forklifts. We have posted signs on the front of the building directing traffic into our location. We have made parking stalls available for our clients. We have implemented designated areas for our vendors, deliveries, and our tow drop-offs. We have canceled our practice of having our clients drop off rentals at our location. We have updated our software, which will allow us to order parts electronically and estimates directly to the insurance carriers, which will dramatically reduce time for approval. In addition, we are beginning to see improvements in the supply sector, which will allow us to ramp up our production output. These are just a few examples of what we are implementing to alleviate the city's concerns. Me personally, I began my career in Paramount in 2004. I love the city. I would want to continue to be a part of this community now and for many years to come. All the hard work, sacrifice, struggle, the late nights, and the strength required to accomplish this for me has been exhausting. To be perfectly honest with you, closing this business would really break my heart. Owning a body shop has been a dream for me since I was a boy. It's very sad for me to be in this position. My employees and our families, we're asking for additional time so that we can continue making improvements to show the board and the citizens of this city that we belong in Paramount. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Yes, one more. The next comment is from Jen Eldridge.
I don't know if there's time for double time or not, but if I need it, if there's time, I'd love to have it. Hi, Commissioners. My name is Jen Eldridge. I am now the current owner of the property, 7337 Somerset. I've owned it for less than 6 months. End of 2021, I inherited it from my father, William Barber, who owned it for many, many years. He was a Snap-on tool salesman, and he had his route that went through your city and neighboring cities, and he invested all of his money in property, in the automotive industries. So I'm learning to understand what it takes to, own a commercial property. And I'm actually new to learning about all this code violations. I had no idea. I wasn't privy to any of this. What happened when my father died in 2020, April 26, 2020, he died from cancer. So he, for 6.5 years, he was sick. And I think that we were having issues with the property management because he was sick. And my sister and I were his caregivers. When he passed, we were the executors, Julie and I, but she has a real estate background and she co-owned property with my dad. So we decided that she would be the best person to manage the properties in the interim until we figured out what was going on. COVID happened, like we said, and we were grieving. And honestly, things weren't managed, to be honest, and I see that now. So I'm here before you today. I only knew of one violation, to be honest with you, and that was the February one. And that violation was it was addressed to my father, William Barber. And somehow, I don't even know how I got it. It was sent to my sister's address that was sold. So somehow I got the notice, and I spoke with Eric. He thought he had addressed it, but clearly, it's been an open issue, and I see that now. I have a public health background and a business background, and since I found out 2 weeks ago what was going on and how serious this matter is, I've spent hours researching, understanding your municipal codes. I've read your general city plan. I've spoken to Mr. Carver twice, and I'm trying to understand what we need to do to remedy this. And Eric, I really believe that he felt, I don't think he understood these were conditional use permit violations. I think he really thought they were parking issues and maybe didn't understand the severity of what was going on. With my involvement, I've been working already with him as trying to figure out, we got to get the parking situation figured. There needs to be parking on the property. So we've discussed that. He's been trying to move all these vehicles, like he mentioned, trying to clear up the congestion. We're also working on a beautification plan. You're right. wrecked cars are ugly. And I understand that you don't want to see that from the street. And obviously the safety concerns are number one. So we want to dialogue with you to figure out what else we can do. I know you guys are frustrated. I know there's been a lot of violations. I understand. I think we just need more direction, and maybe with my involvement, we can turn this around. I'm hoping that you guys will give us a little more time to be compliant and to implement some of these things. I also was wondering too, if we put an additional fence in over by the office area, that would block the bays, and that would also make sure that they're not putting any vehicles in view, and you would only see parking. And I'm wondering if that would be helpful too as part of the beautification plan. So, are you guys able to dialogue with us with our time? I know we're over time, but.
You have any comments here from our group?
Staff will be responding.
Should I have a seat or stand up
Please.
here? Okay.
If you're done.
Okay, John, do we have any more testimony tonight?
No, those were the two cards that we had.
Okay,
Cards.
and in that case, we need a motion to close the public hearing portion.
I'll make a motion. Esparza will make a motion. Close the public hearing.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Abrego?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Bautista?
Yes.
Commissioner Esparza?
Yes.
Chair Weisenberger?
Yes. Okay, if we don't have any questions or comments here, then we're ready to entertain a motion to adopt this
no,
planning
I-
Wait,
commission
before they-
resolution.
No, I don't have anything further. No. I think we're good. Did you have any questions for us or any discussion?
I have one question to ask. I know she made a request to see if we can, I heard that the new property on Jefferson was going to be made available late May, and I don't know if it has something to do, is it two separate owners of the Jefferson property and the property on Somerset, or is it the same where, like, what I was trying to get at is are we allowed to extend 1 month or 2 months? How much time are they needing? Or do we even have that option? So, Chair?
Well, I guess our city attorney could answer that, hopefully.
You do have the option of delaying a decision and giving the property owner and the business owner a brief period of time in which to show improvement. But I would point out you do have a traffic hazard there. It's not a parking problem, it's a safety hazard. Blocking public sidewalks is dangerous, blocking streets is dangerous. You have a CUP that says there's no outside storage, and you have a use on Jefferson for which there is no business license. So if you were inclined to give more time, it needs to be, with all due respect, a brief period of time. This has been, I understand about COVID, but this has been 4 years.
Okay.
I would just add, in our opinion, that the situation on Somerset is a completely separate situation from whatever might occur on Jefferson. Again, as stated, there's no business license. We may have to modify the CUP at that location. So I would view Somerset separately.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from our commissioners? Okay, then I think we need to move forward and entertain a motion here to adopt this planning commission resolution number 22015, approving the request to revoke this conditional use permit number 507. We need a motion to approve.
I'll do extra time, but I only do like maybe 2-3 months to see if it gets better. That's it. There is a lot of complaints, so.
So we have no motion, is that it?
We can review it in 3 months and see if that gets better. If there's more complaints, we could revoke it then.
Well, my opinion is 4 years is long enough. And like our city attorney said, we saw the pictures blocking the sidewalk. We have even heard some from among ourselves here, people trying to get back and forth to the post office and parking in the median. So the city has used a lot of resources here, and we talked about that. So if that's your pleasure, it's not mine though. Okay, so I guess we do not have any motions then. John? So what's the next procedure? We're going to move on to item number 5?
Sorry, I always forget. We would, if you choose not to proceed, we would ask you at this point to deny the motion so that we can appeal to the city council. It's that serious a matter. We have no agreement, or we have the word of the people in the audience that they're going to fix this, but we've utilized all of our enforcement powers at this point in time. So it's either, if you choose to do nothing, then the city prosecutor will move forward with a separate civil or criminal action. Or if you deny this, we'll move forward with an appeal to the city council.
And is the chair allowed to make a motion?
Yes.
Okay, I will move that we approve this.
Okay, I'll second that.
Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Abrego?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Bautista?
Yes.
Commissioner Esparza?
Yes.
Chair Weisenberger?
Yes. Okay, item number 5.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, before, one more thing, but as you move on, before you sign this resolution, I want to point out that there's one additional section that needs to be added. That's the appeal right of Mr. Nunez and the property owner. And so we will be adding language that this may be appealed, as we could have, to the city council within 10 calendar days after receipt of the executed resolution. I just want to be sure that they understand that they do have an appeal right to the city council, and it's a short period of time.
Thank you.
He has a question.
Question? Sure, come on up.
Okay. This property has never been anything other than an automotive center. And to be honest with you, I have no idea what else this building can be. I don't have the connections in the city yet to be able to find another person to rent this property. And I don't know if that would mean this is probably vacant for some time. Please, I'm begging you to give us please let me help. In just the 2 weeks already, we've done so much, and I really think if I had just a little more time and I worked with him, we're willing to get a consultant. I will work very closely with Mr. Carver. We'll make sure that we are involving the city in everything that we're doing. Please, I'm begging you. I don't want to ruin my dad's legacy. This means so much to me. Please give me a chance.
Let me point out that if you choose, for example, were you to choose to appeal, you have a period of time to do that because there's a hearing that has to be noticed and scheduled. I would also strongly suggest, and the city manager has suggested, that you meet with Mr. Carver about the other possible uses. The staff is willing and happy and available to meet with you at any point in time.
Okay, and if we need to make any revisions to the permit, to add more language or anything like that, I want to work with the city, and I just haven't had that opportunity. Like I said, I literally have known about this for 2 weeks. The February notice I didn't get for weeks, and that's the only one I ever knew of. My sister never communicated any of this to me. I'm begging you, please. I don't want to go to the appeal, and if you can just give us some time before you take that step, please. Thank you.
Well, we've already made this decision here, so the appeal process is what has to come next. Isn't that right, City Attorney?
Yes, but I do suggest that there's always time to meet with staff. There's always times to review your options. Certainly, Mr. Carver is available. Certainly, Mr. King is available. I would suggest that those meetings begin as soon as possible. Let's see how it goes. In the meantime, I think that this is a motivating resolution.
Sounds like it. Okay, so please call the city tomorrow. Speak with Mr. Carver, Mr. King. Okay, I think that's the best way to proceed. Okay, let's move on to item number 5 then, oral reports.
Yes, Mr. Chair and members of the commission. This item is a study session item to receive input from the Planning Commission, to potentially update our accessory dwelling unit guidelines, and to offer an ADU package to guide in the development of these types of units. We are working with several other cities on a grant from the Southern California Association of Governments to produce an accessory dwelling unit package that will assist, again, with the development of these types of units. Our consultant, Garlin Woodsong, will give the presentation for this item. Thank you.
Hello, is this on? Sounds like it is. Okay. I'm Garland Woodsong. I'm the principal of Woodsong Associates, and I'm leading a team of consultants. We are working, our client is actually the Southern California Association of Governments, but the city of Paramount applied for a grant, which was approved. The city received the grant, and so along with 3 other jurisdictions, is receiving technical assistance from my planning team under a program from the State of California Department of Housing and Community Development called the Regional Early Action Program, which is intended to spur housing production in the state of California as a response to the housing crisis. Tonight, I'd like to give you a brief introduction to the project. I'd like to talk about local ADU production progress, give you a brief demographic analysis, talk about the changing state ADU policy landscape, and review some ADU best practices from peer jurisdictions and research, and then take questions and talk about next steps. So the Paramount Accessory Dwelling Unit project is being delivered by my team, which includes Sidekick Homes, which is a local ADU builder, headed by Florentine Christian, who's also a local ADU policy expert. Also Jet Planning, headed by Elizabeth Decker, who is an expert in ADU policy in Oregon and Washington. Robert Liberty is an expert in ADU policy who's been working for 50 years in the space of housing and transportation planning and has worked for AARP, among other clients working on ADUs. Cole Peterson with Accessory Dwelling Strategies. He literally wrote the book on ADUs called Backdoor Revolution. Dell Richardson and Associates is a local outreach firm who will be assisting us in putting on some public workshops in the city later this summer, actually in June. I think we're targeting the first and the last week of June for those public outreach workshops to talk about ADU policy with citizens. Suzanne Madison of Allegra is handling digital outreach, branding, logos, and deliverable templates for the project, and has so far produced a new ADU project logo that we'll be using for branding all of the materials going forward. Finally, Joshua Abrams, principal with Baird and Driscoll Planning, has been consulting to cities up and down California on ADU policy in response to the changes in state regulations involving ADUs. So we have an all-star team to try and deliver better ADU policy for you, and we really look forward to diving into this. Some of the project goals this team is going to produce include an ADU brochure that will be given to applicants to new ADUs, an ADU handbook, which is a larger publication, goes deeper into what is an ADU, how do you build it, how do you rent it, what resources are available. ADU calculator, which goes into the cost of building an ADU based on the local market. ADU fact sheet, which will talk about the approval process for ADUs in the city. An ADU process review, which think of that as a checklist that will show an applicant and staff all the different steps that need to be checked off on the way from submitting an ADU application to having it receive a building permit and a final I want to say certificate of occupancy, but I believe it's just called a final for an ADU.
Unless it's a home built from the ground up.
Right.
Right.
This project consists of 4 phases: the co-start phase, build readiness phase, co-design phase, and the action phase. We're currently in the phase of building readiness, and they're connected by 3 feedback loops: learning, planning, and integrating our deliverables back into city policy. Some local ADU context. State policy began changing in 2016 around ADUs. And as of 2017, ADUs were not a significant part of the housing approvals in the city. In fact, 0% of approvals. But beginning in 2019, ADU approvals started to tick up, starting in 12% of all housing approvals in 2019 to 92% in 2020 and 99% of all housing approvals in 2021 thus far. So ADUs are rapidly becoming a massive part of the housing production picture in this city. So snapshot from the year 2021, city population roughly 56,000 people with 78 ADUs approved. This next number, think of it as a per capita number, but because the population ratio to the number of ADUs approved would result in a per capita number that would be like 0.00 something, which is kind of hard for the human mind to grasp, infinitesimally small numbers. Instead, this is the population per approved ADU. So we're just flipping the relationship of the math and saying there's 720 people in the city for every approved ADU. And the average for all of Los Angeles County is about 442, meaning that it's a higher rate of ADU approvals. However, Los Angeles County's rate is being driven up by the extremely large number of ADUs approved in the city of Los Angeles, right? Be that as it may. If we were to trend out the current city of Paramount approval rate for the next 20 years, then in 20 years, roughly 11% of the homes in Paramount will have an ADU at this rate of production. If Paramount were to increase ADU production to that of the county as a whole, then in 20 years, nearly 18% of the homes in the city would have an ADU. That's just some context. It's a sticky button. Starting off demographic analysis. So this is from the latest census data. Currently, 46% of the households in Paramount are in a detached home. And the balance is in apartments of various sizes, duplexes, and townhomes. 67% of the households in the city are in a home built prior to 1980. And so at this point, a home built prior to 1980 is a structure that's likely approaching a remodel, minor or major, at the discretion of the owner, but that's a structure that no longer meets current building or energy codes, was approved under a prior set of codes. And so therefore, it's reaching an inflection point where the owner, when facing a major remodel, potentially, if they have the resources to do that, might consider building an ADU, either as a part of the structure or in the yard. So this shows us that the potential market in the city is actually pretty high because of the aging housing stock. Currently, the 75% of the households in the city are in a home with 2 or 3 bedrooms, and 65% of the households have 1 or 2 vehicles available. 57% of the city lives in a renter-occupied household. Only 43% are in owner-occupied households. And the city is a very diverse city that is largely Hispanic. And the benefits of home ownership are, for the most part, proportionally distributed in Paramount, except that white home ownership is disproportionately slightly higher than black home ownership. And that's just comparing this previous slide of race and ethnicity with the home ownership rate by race. Black households are disproportionately more likely to be renters than households of other races in the city. And about 1 in 4 households in Paramount are severely housing cost burdened. Well over twice as many of the households that are severely cost burdened are renters in comparison to owners. And in terms of the distribution of ownership cost burden, again, there's not that much of an ownership cost burden. That it's limited to the northeast corner of the city is where there's any concentration of that at all. But the cost burden rental households are distributed across the city, a little bit less so in the east and the west, but definitely on the north and the south. This may not be news to you, but it's helpful to our team as we're trying to make sense of ADU policy and what the need is here in the city. Housing cost burden by race, Pacific Islanders are the most cost burdened, followed by Black and Hispanic households, and Asian, White, and Native households are the least cost burdened. In terms of populations with ability limits, at least 12% of the households in Paramount include a member who may not be able to walk up or down stairs. They have ambulatory limitations. This is something that our design team wants to know, is how much demand is there in the city for things like zero-step entries that would be accessible housing units. And one of the deliverables that we'll be producing are a set of pre-approved ADU plans or pre-designed ADU plans that you could adopt for pre-approval. And so this is something that we're considering is how many of those plans need to be zero-step entry, for instance. The city is rather young in general. At least 61% of the people in Paramount are under 40 years of age. And so that's the demographic analysis. Now I'm going to shift into the state of ADU policy in the state of California. So just a quick overview. The ADU ordinance and approval process across California has changed. Now cities must approve ADUs ministerially rather than using a discretionary process, and that approval must be based on objective standards such as size, configuration, setback, and placement on the lot. The minimum allowable maximum ADU height per ordinance, the city ADU maximum height can be no less than 16 feet. So state ordinances specify no maximum ADU height, meaning that you could allow ADUs higher than 16 feet if you wanted to. You just can't require them to be shorter than 16 feet. Housing elements must include a plan to incentivize and promote the creation of ADUs that can offer affordable rents for very low, or moderate income households. The state ordinances establish the maximum set of standards that local agencies shall use to evaluate a proposed ADU, and no additional standards other than those provided in the state ordinances shall be used or imposed. That's the language of the statute. State ordinances do not limit the authority of cities to adopt less restrictive requirements for ADUs, such as allowing for two-story ADUs or allowing ADUs to replace driveways within the front setback, for instance. A new law was passed last year, I guess, at some point during COVID, SB 9, which allows 2 units of at least 800 square feet on any residentially zoned parcel, allows for an urban lot split to create 2 parcels, and allows the applicant to build 2 units of at least 800 square feet on each of those 2 parcels for a total of 4 units. Applicants who want to take advantage of the lot split must sign an affidavit stating they will occupy one of the homes as their principal residence for a minimum of 3 years from the date of the approval of the lot split, unless the applicant is a community land trust or a housing nonprofit. And those lot splits and unit approvals per objective design standards are exempt from CEQA. The SB 9 lot splits may result in 2 new parcels, with one being not smaller than 40% of the size of the original. And the maximum allowable minimum lot size for newly created parcels is 1,200 square feet. So the city could allow for smaller minimum lot sizes by local ordinance. And the city can allow for 3 or more, but not less than 2 units on each newly created lot. So this is all context to say that a property owner unable to get their desired development outcome approved as an ADU may thus be incentivized to instead pursue approval for the development concept under SB 9. So that's some of the state policy context. And another piece is the legislative intent regarding ADUs is for the state ADU law to be the minimum requirement. And the state is encouraging local governments to go beyond the statutory minimum to further the creation of ADUs. Opportunities to go beyond the minimums based on best practices and the latest ADU research include those related to becoming a pro-housing jurisdiction and to go beyond providing for to encouraging the construction of new ADUs. And so many local governments have embraced the importance of ADUs as an important part of their overall housing policies and have pursued innovative strategies. I'm going to run through some of these best practices in 4 categories. The first is zoning ordinances. And these are just bullet examples of best practices. The first is to allow larger ADUs than the state statutory minimum maximums. In other words, you could allow ADUs of up to 1,200 square feet if you wanted to. You could allow for the front, the side, and or the rear setback to be set to 0 for ADUs. You could not require the ADU to match the style of the main house. You could, on a corner lot or on a 2-street lot, require only one front setback for ADUs, allowing for the other street frontage to be treated like a side setback. You could allow more than one whole ADU per lot. Right now, state statute says you have to allow one ADU plus one junior ADU, but you could just allow a second whole ADU on the lot. You could allow something called a carriage home, which is a garage with an ADU above it, to replace the driveways within the front setback. This, by the way, might be low-hanging fruit for a couple of reasons. One, the driveway is very accessible to the street, so it's easier to construct or deliver a pre-built ADU to the driveway than to crane it into the backyard. And the second is that when you're building an ADU on a property, you're adding a second or third, perhaps, household to that lot. And those are people who may have kids that want to go out and play in the yard, pets that may want to play in the yard, may want to barbecue in the yard. And so this is an opportunity to not take away yard space that more people are going to be putting more demands on in order to provide space for that home. You could instead just repurpose the driveway and say this could be structured parking essentially rather than surface parking with housing above it. So that's a promising practice I'd like to highlight. Another option is to eliminate off-street parking minimums citywide and to instead manage on-street parking demand. Right now, state law says that parking is not required within a half mile of transit or within a certain other set of conditions. But you could just say, well, there's no parking required for ADUs citywide, and don't bother looking at the map, is what that bullet is suggesting. Finally, the last point is to allow movable ADUs, otherwise known as tiny homes on wheels. Certain jurisdictions in California have already done this, including Sacramento and San Jose. And so that's lowering essentially the price barrier to entry to get into ADUs. Tiny homes on wheels are significantly cheaper than the cheapest stick-built ADUs, and so that's a way to reduce the costs of owning an ADU. Jurisdictions that have allowed movable ADUs on residential lots typically require utility connections and stub-outs, including sewer, potable water, and power, and for the movable ADU to be sited in a legally approved parking area so that they're not haphazardly placed on the lot. Best practices for process and procedures include an ADU permit assistance program, providing ADU development processes, graphics or flowcharts, providing easy-to-understand handouts about municipal ADU standards, which we will be producing as a part of this contract, and amnesty programs for unpermitted ADUs. Best practices for ADU affordability and financial support include ADU financing, fee reductions and waivers, an ADU loan forgiveness program, a financial guidebook for ADU owners, and requirements and incentives for affordable ADUs. And finally, best practices for ADU outreach and public information include offering free zoning and ADU program workshops, establishing contacts with ADU owners and advocates, participating in an ADU coalition such as Casita Coalition, and reaching out to media contacts to do firsthand narrative stories featuring ADU owners or tenants. So that was a lot of data and uses of the term ADU that I just dumped on you. So apologies if you don't like that term ADU. I'm open to other suggestions for what do we call the second or more homes that we're putting in addition to a primary home. I think granny flats or backyard cottages are actually a little bit more approachable than ADU, but this is a term of art from the state legislature. So. Any questions for me? Anything I presented?
I'd like to give just a little more background. So thank you, Garland.
Yeah.
So we have a local ordinance. The state legislature passed this legislation, or they have been continually passing legislation, and the last couple governors have signed the bills. So this is something that we have to do and we have in place. The city council last year adopted a local ordinance. A city does not have to adopt a local ordinance, but Paramount chose to do so. So some of what Garland mentioned are kind of tailored requirements that are Paramount based, I guess you could say. So one of the state requirements is also when a city adopts a local ordinance, a city has to send that ordinance to the state for review to make sure we didn't miss anything. We did that. So the council adopted the ordinance in, I think, June or July of last year. Almost immediately, or within a few weeks, we sent our ordinance up to the Department of Housing and Community Development. It took them until, this year, I think it was February of 2022 to review it. I don't think it was very complicated, but they're short-staffed. They're doing a lot of things. So we now have a mandate by the state to make some minor changes. There was a little gray area, but we're gonna comply, and we're gonna use this kind of fits well with this project. So with this grant, we have a few goals. This project, Garland's team is gonna have, as you mentioned, some preset plans to make it easier for folks who want to produce an ADU. That's one thing. A lot of other handy tools, budgeting and incentives, as you mentioned, and with that, and since we're going to be changing our ordinance anyway, the door is open for maybe some minor changes, more minor changes that you and the city council are open to. So, if you're happy as it is, that's one thing. If you'd like to add a few tweaks to it, that's we could pass that along to the city council. And adding one more thing, this is all, we applied for this grant at the direction of the city council. The council, as local government, we're not excited about getting mandates from the state, but to some degree, some of the city council members appreciate ADUs to, maybe not the finer details, but the idea that it does provide an affordable option for people in Paramount who are born and raised here. They can stay here, or they can keep their adult parents or older folks in town. So the city council did like that and did ask us to put together some materials and tools to explain the process better. And that's a big part of Garland and his task.
And Mr. Chair, we can answer any questions if there are any.
Is the ADU, I know I was wondering about the parking part. I saw on there where it says you can have an ADU and you don't have to comply with usual parking, additional parking that would be required, I guess, for other types of housing. Is that a state thing?
Yeah, it's there's 5 different categories of exemptions, but the largest one is parking is not required within a half mile of transit. And so looking at a map of the city, I think a majority of residential areas are within that area. That's
about the whole city.
About the whole city, within a half mile.
About the whole city.
That's good, though.
Yeah. So there's
You could take a residential that just has one house on it right now, split it, and you can maybe bring in those mini homes that you were talking about on wheels, even though they have to have electric and sewer and all that stuff. Or you can make apartments, I guess, on each plot, and with up to a minimum of 2, right? But it could be 3 or 4 on each half of the lot.
that's SB9, but yes, yeah.
Okay, With no additional parking required at all.
That's great.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
That's the gist of it. And also compounding the situation is if you were to be granted access to the garages of your neighbors, as our team member Florentine is when she does site tours of clients who are looking to build an ADU, you'd find that most garages are not used for vehicle storage. So the existing off-street parking spaces that are provided in order to comply with the zoning code are not being used for vehicle storage. And so the parking problem is being made worse because people aren't parking where the space is provided to park the vehicle. They're parking on the street instead or in the driveway, doubling it up. So the emerging response to this, which I would suggest looking at to further, is it's called on-street parking demand management. And it basically involves a residential permit parking program. Oftentimes, residential permit parking programs are on a request basis. That is, the neighbors have to get together and gather a bunch of signatures and then come to city council or city staff and present the signatures and say, hey, we all want to pay more money to park our cars in the street, if they get to that point. And then residential permit parking district is established. This is not the best practice for parking management. The best practice is to have a quantitative measurement of the spaces on the street and to just see if there's a problem. And if more than 80% of the on-street spaces are taken, when you do your measurements, you can take them different times of the day, different times of the week, different times of the year. If you see that the average occupancy is above 80%, just say, we're going to do parking management now. The city is going to make the decision and is going to do residential permit parking management because there's a problem and we need to manage it. And if there's not, then there's no problem, then we don't need to manage it with residential permit parking program. I would strongly recommend this if you're concerned about on-street parking, because frankly, I don't know that there's lower hanging fruit to deal with the parking problem that may get worse before it gets better. There's not much you can do in terms of, state law is saying there's a parking exemption now, right? So requiring more off-street parking is not a viable path forward. But people are still driving cars. People are still buying cars. You still need a car to get around the greater Los Angeles region, right? So there's car sharing. Frankly, I would love it if me and my neighbors could go in together and buy some brand new Tesla electric cars and do some car sharing, because that'd be rad, But that seems actually not as low hanging as regulating on-street parking in terms of an approach. But it's also something to consider is car sharing.
That's awesome. But
so, anyways, we just went down a little parking rabbit hole, but I think it's time well spent because honestly, I think that is the number one issue that I'm hearing from all of the jurisdictions we're working with about ADUs is parking, because it's not really addressed by state statute. State statute creates more demand for on-street parking, but doesn't really address the supply equation. And so, parking demand management is the way to address that I see. So,
if it's a problem.
If it's a problem,
yeah.
Any other questions?
Okay, thank you.
You guys have had a long night, so I'll let you go. Just real quick, the next step is we're going to have a couple of workshops in June. We're working on finalizing the dates for those, but we'd like to roll out some more information about ADUs to the citizens and take their temperature on how they're feeling about ADUs and what they'd like to see in the city. And based on that, we'll come up with recommendations. So if the AD ordinance is going to be reopened, these recommendations would be things to consider at that point in time before adopting a new ordinance to comply with HCD's letter.
Thank you.
And finally, the project is currently scheduled to go through December, but if for some reason we need a little bit more time, I'm open to extending it up until June of 23 if for any reason December seems like it's rushed. So we'll be in constant communication about that. Take it as it goes. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Okay, then let's move to agenda item number 6, oral reports, city council actions.
Yes, Mr. Chair and Commission members, last week at the City Council meeting, we've had a very popular home improvement program since the mid-1980s where we do exterior improvements for homeowners who are in a low to moderate income category. We get this money from the federal government, and we provide grants around $21,000, $22,000, depending upon your income. So we've been doing this for single-family homes for more than 35 years. Last week, Tuesday, the City Council approved an amendment to that program. We're now going to include mobile homes. So we'll be moving into mobile home parks. We'll be targeting mobile homes that have a need for an exterior remodel. We also do correct health and safety issues, electrical, plumbing issues like that, things like that. So we're excited about this. So we'll be starting that very soon. And that was it.
Very nice.
Okay, let's move into our comments. Any comments from our city attorney? Okay. From our commissioners? John, has there been any word about the, I think in December or maybe January, I mentioned something about curb address painting, putting the, I think you said that was moved along to the appropriate.
Yes, that's with our Public Works Department. Let me follow up on that for you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, staff, any comments from staff tonight? Okay, then we move to adjournment, and we will adjourn this meeting then and reconvene on June 14th, 2022 at 6 p.m.
Okay, we'll move to start the Paramount Development Review Board meeting.
Can I get me
7:27, 7:28, around there. Can I get a roll call of members?
Board Member Anderson.
Here.
Board Member Bautista.
Here.
Board Member Esparza.
Here.
Board Member Weisenberger. Chair Abrego.
Here. Approval of the minutes for April the 12th. Can I get a review and approval?
Barza will make an approval.
I'll second.
April 12th.
We have a first and a second.
Board Member Anderson.
Yes.
Board Member Bautista.
Yes.
Board Member Esparza.
Yes.
Board Member Weisenberger. Chair Abrego.
Yes. Public comments. That's the next section. Any public comments?
No public comments.
Thanks, John. New business, item number 2, DRA number 22003. A request by Steve, Sean, Ahmed, Davis, New Love, Architects, and Associates for Cliff Shikaki, El Pollo Loco to remodel the exterior of the existing restaurant on 6833 Alondra Boulevard in the C3 General Commercial Zone.
Yes, Mr. Chair and board members, this is a request to remodel the El Pollo Loco at Orange and Alondra, and John King will walk you through this.
Thank you. Hey, John. Board Chair Abrego and board members. Moving on to El Pollo Loco. As you know from national fast food restaurants, they tend to rebrand every 5-10 years. Mm-hmm. So in the case of El Pollo Loco, they did that, I want to say 2013. So just about 10 years. They just want to do a refresh on their buildings, and kind of there's are different styles of architecture throughout the region, but they still want you to think, oh, that's an El Pollo Loco when you see it. So that's what they're going for. So it's in the C3 General Commercial Zone on a 37,550 square foot site at the northwest corner of Alondra and Orange. And the restaurant's 2,800 square feet. So they're not proposing any big changes, no change to the building size. They're not adding any customer seats. It's pretty straightforward. It's just the outside, and along with that, just touch up the the landscaping and the site, everything that goes along with the building. So here's where it is at the northwest corner of Alondra and Orange, and you could see, probably know the drive-through entry, and it kind of wraps around the south side of the building. And then you can exit onto Orange. With COVID, like most drive-through restaurants, the drive-through lane has grown a little bit. It's manageable. The never extends into the public right of way, but there may be some issues with cars that are parked, diners that are inside the building that want to get in and out. So, but it works itself out, and it's getting better. Here's a site plan. So with this view, the property's outlined in red, the building's in blue. You can see the various parking stalls and the trash enclosures just to the west. This is how it looks now. So you have before you two views. At the top is looking southwest, and that's kind of the main entry there. And on the bottom, you'll see the drive-through and the drive-through window on the middle. And when I mentioned that 10 years ago they remodeled, at that time they added this little architectural feature, these vertical metal bands that light up at night. They're proposing to take that away. So they brought it in, they're going to take it away. Whoop. And this is what they're proposing. This is what it will look like. So you can see they're changing the proposed color scheme. In place of that vertical feature is this wrought iron feature. And it's decorative. It's within kind of an inset arched area. And if you look very closely, once it's installed, there's kind of an homage to Pollo Loco, little chickens and a taco and a couple of other things. I'll show you a close-up in a second. They're also proposing a new metal cover, decorative metal cover above the drive-through window that'll protect their workers and just give another design feature. So nothing too dramatic, and it does look a little more streamlined. Nice, the darker gray that you've been seeing with other restaurants, and so the stone on the base is still going to be there, and here you can see that metal feature throughout. New signage, a new sign, a logo type will be part of this. And here's the close-up. You have there's a guitar, there's your chicken and the flame. So a few little things. It's nice. Yeah. And as we do with these type of applications, I'm sure they would do it anyway, but we want to make sure that that they touch up the various metal pieces and materials and just complementary features. So top left is one of the driveway gates, a swinging gate. It's a little rusty. That's going to be repainted. The curbs need some care. The curbs will be power washed and restored, and the asphalt will be cleaned and get out some of those stains. The top right is the electrical transformer. It's faded through the years. That will be repainted another dark green color. Bottom left is the stamped and stained driveway feature, and there's also the same feature at the drive-through exit and entrance. It's a little worn, so that's going to be refreshed. And then the bottom right is the trash enclosure. Looks like there's a bite taken out of the that cornice there, so that will be restored. So with that, we're recommending approval and happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from our board members? Nope.
Who was hungry?
Okay. I guess we need to move to approve.
I move to approve.
I'll second.
We have a first and we have a second.
Board Member Anderson?
Yes.
Board Member Bautista?
Yes.
Board Member Esparza?
Yes.
Board Member Weisenberger?
Yes.
Chair Abrego?
Yes. Next item is comments. Any comments from our board members? Any comments from our staff?
No.
Okay, we'll move to adjournment. Our next meeting is scheduled for June the 14th, 2022 at 6 p.m. Next meeting to start is our Paramount Economic Development Board meeting, 6:34. Can I get a roll call of members?
Board Member Anderson?
Here.
Board Member Bautista?
Yes.
Board Member Weisenberger?
Here.
Vice Chair Esparza?
Here.
Chair Abrego?
Here. Approval of minutes for April 12th, 2022. Can I get a review and approval?
Sparza will make a motion to approve it. April 12th.
I second.
Roll call.
Board Member Anderson.
Yes.
Board Member Bautista.
Yes.
Board Member Weisenberger.
Yes.
Vice Chair Esparza.
Yes.
Chair Abrego.
Yes. Next item is public comments. Any public comments?
No public comments.
New business reports, oral report for outdoor dining update.
Yes, Mr. Chair and board members. During COVID, you probably noticed throughout the city that there were restaurants that were erecting outdoor dining areas. Obviously, the indoor dining was restricted, and so we were looking for a way to allow restaurants to still have customers and be able to make money. So we had a process that we went through. There was an application that was filled out. We reviewed it. Public Safety reviewed it. Public Works reviewed it. And now we're moving to end that alfresco program with the temporary permit, and we're reaching out to restaurants to gauge whether they're interested in doing a permanent outdoor dining area, which would come back to you as a conditional use permit. So that's what we're looking at for the future, and John King will give you a brief update.
Thank you, John. Chair Abrego, board members. I really don't have much more to add. We thought we would be a little more along at this point, but I think in the next couple of days, we're really going to gain some traction. We're going to be taking this to the city council. What I mean by taking to the city council, we're going to be taking an agreement with a local architect, actually based out of Long Beach. They're called Studio 111, and they're going to put together what they're terming kind of like a kit of parts. So kind of a pre-selected types of benches, string lights, and heaters, and barricades, with a few options to suit the different sites here in town, the different restaurant locations. Mm-hmm. We sent out, as John mentioned, we notified the participating al fresco restaurants, letting them know the program would be winding down. We gave them a deadline, which is quickly approaching. I think it's next week, for them to remove their structures and outdoor seating, and we're offering this option. And we've had a positive response. There's a few that they're looking for a little more details. So in the next few days, we're going to tighten that up. We'll know exactly which restaurants will be participating, which restaurants Studio 111 will be designing for, and before long, we'll have this package together and get more of that outdoor dining. Hopefully, it is California. You can probably do this in the wintertime too, but that's the point of the heaters. So I think this is something we'll be proud of, and with economic development supporting local business. And that's all I have. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, John.
Is there a lot? Sorry, is there a lot of participants?
In the alfresco program, was there 16, John?
Yeah, there was 14 or 16 that did the temporary. We've sent out letters to all of them. We think just by looking at aerials and how much parking restaurants have, we think there's probably 5 or 6 that are going to be able to provide sufficient parking to do an outdoor dining area. So that's what we think may be coming back to you for conditional use permits, maybe 5 to 6 restaurants.
I like it.
Okay. Move on to comments. Any comments from our board members?
That was me.
Staff?
No.
Move to adjournment, and the next meeting is scheduled for June 14, 2022 at 6 p.m. Good night, everyone.